Easy question first, name and title?
Eric Lindman, Director of Public Works and Utilities.
All right. So can you describe a little bit what you went over today with the plans for fixing and kind of rehabilitating the water facility?
Yeah, so our wastewater treatment plant is, the last upgrade was 30 years ago. And typically we start looking at what upgrades need to be done, about the 25 to 30 year mark. And so we started this plan a little over a year ago. We've found that there's a significant need for an upgrade at this point in time for a number of reasons: capacity, regulations, and then safety and reliability. So right now we are in a preliminary design phase on that project. We're working through the processes through the actual design and what's going to be the best process for different parts of the wastewater treatment plant to actually treat the wastewater. Along with that, on the back end of that, what do we get out of that? Do we get renewable energy? Can we be more sustainable than what we are now, and what are ways that we can improve that? Our next steps really are to define the costs with those types of processes that we're doing right now. Tonight we gave a presentation to the City Council and the Committee of the Whole, just as an informational session as far as where we're at. And what our next steps are. We're still on schedule from what we proposed, and so we want to try to stay on schedule. We want everybody to understand where we're at.
Okay, so what's kind of the next steps moving forward in this design process?
So right now we're going to finish up the preliminary design by the end of the year, and we will be applying, or at least keeping our eligibility for funding moving in. And so that's what's called an intent to apply with the funding source. So it doesn't commit us to anything, but it allows us to apply for those funds in the future. And so moving forward, starting in January, the goal is to get into detailed design where we would actually have drawings and start preparing bidding documents.
And where would that potential funding come from?
Right now it's proposed to come from the Clean Water Fund. Through the state of Wisconsin. It's a federally subsidized loan program, and so right now the interest rates are low. They're less than 2%, and we can borrow up to 30 years, which is favorable for the users. It's less increase in the user rates.
And what change would residents see if this goes through?
Right now, if all the funding holds true, that it is truly going to be 80 million, which we haven't defined yet, we anticipate that would be the top end. They would see about a $13 increase on their bill.
And then there was also discussion about other communities potentially joining and sending their water to the plant as well if it gets fixed, correct?
Correct, yeah. We've had interest from both Marathon City and Edgar. They're facing some of the same regulations that we are with the low-level phosphorus limits that the DNR is imposing on municipalities. And so, but because they're smaller communities, there's a lot more impact to the user rates, as well as the potential for some very high costs to update both of those plants. And so they're looking at the potential for bringing their wastewater to the city of Wausau.
And if they came in, what would change with the plan?
With the plan, we would need to add a couple of additional capacity, a couple different pieces of infrastructure to the treatment facility, and then we would also have to increase some of the pipe sizing within our collection system within the city.
Would then the cost potentially go down since you'd be adding more users?
No, the user rates would stay the same. We would be adding user rates, and in the future, I think everything, we would increase the rates the same as we would depending on the amount we're borrowing. That would not change at this time. I would, over time though, increasing our user base is always a benefit on the utility because we're gaining, additional users, and we're gaining that additional revenue to spread out for future improvements, and so